Welcome back, everyone. We're ready for another deep dive today.
Yeah.
And this time, we're tackling Chapter 5.
Ooh, Mind Matters.
From Bola Agbulla's book, Impact, The Effect of Momentum.
Right.
And I think, this chapter really digs into how the way we think can either, propel us forward or, totally hold us back when we're trying to make a real difference.
That impact.
Make an impact, yeah. And there's some, really fascinating stuff in here. The story of Marconi. How he was, considered insane for thinking he could transmit messages through thin air.
Right. And then he invents the radio.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And, there are comparisons of the human brain to, skyscrapers in cities.
Yeah.
And, even the biblical story of King Solomon.
Yes.
With, his wisdom and resolving that dispute over the baby.
I love that story.
It's a classic.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot to unpack here. And the chapter, it kicks off with this awesome quote by Frank Zappa.
Mm-hmm.
The mind is like a parachute, he says. It doesn't work if it's not open.
I like that one.
Have you ever, felt like your own thinking was stuck?
Oh, absolutely.
Like you were in a rut?
Yeah.
What helped you kind of open up to new ideas or possibilities?
Sometimes it's just taking a break.
Oh, yeah.
Stepping away from whatever I'm working on or thinking about. It can be going for a walk, listening to music, or even just talking to someone with a different perspective. Just that little bit of space can help to unstick things.
I feel like that's how I am with, writer's block.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes I just need to, go do something completely different.
Right.
And then, boom, the ideas start flowing again.
Exactly.
So, okay, let's talk about Marconi. I think his story is such a great example of what Agbulla is talking about in this chapter.
Absolutely.
Right? Here's this guy. He's got this vision.
Visionary.
He thinks he can transmit messages wirelessly through the air.
Right.
And everyone's like, you're crazy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. People thought he was nuts. I mean, they even tried to have him committed.
It's wild, right?
Yeah.
But he just, kept going.
Didn't let it stop him.
Yeah. Despite all of that resistance, all of that ridicule, he ends up revolutionizing communication.
Completely changed the world.
And I feel like that's, a key takeaway here, right? To make a real impact, you often have to be willing to challenge the status quo.
Oh, for sure. And be okay with people thinking you're a little bit out there.
Yeah, not be afraid to push boundaries, even when other people don't get it.
It takes courage.
And it also kind of reminds me of, that whole concept of momentum that Agbulla talks about. Marconi's persistence, his belief in his vision. It kind of, built this momentum that propelled him forward even when others couldn't see it.
Totally. It's even though he faced all those setbacks, his momentum kept building because he never stopped believing.
Exactly. So, all right, let's get into the meat of this chapter.
Let's do it.
Because Agbulla, he lays out 4 different, approaches to thinking.
4 approaches.
That he says can create this momentum.
Mm-hmm.
There's growth-oriented thinking, solution-oriented thinking, practical-oriented thinking, and systems-oriented thinking.
Got it. A lot of oriented thinking there.
Yeah, there is, right?
Yeah.
But I think when you look at them together, they really paint a complete picture of how we can, harness the power of our minds for, positive change.
Absolutely.
So let's start with growth-oriented thinking. What exactly does that even mean?
Well, Agbulla, he describes it as being open to the idea that you can always learn and evolve and improve. It's about seeing challenges as opportunities to grow.
Oh.
Rather than these big, scary roadblocks. Instead of being afraid of failing, you see it as a chance to learn. Exactly. And he uses a great example from the Bible. It's about the growth of Jesus in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man.
So it's not just about, book smarts.
Yeah.
It's about developing character, too, right?
It's about becoming a better person overall, more capable, more impactful.
Okay, I like that. So it's about the whole package.
The whole package, absolutely.
And then he also brings up Lee Kuan Yew.
Oh, yeah, the leader who transformed Singapore.
Yeah, and he talks about how Yew was all about continuous learning.
Absolutely.
And how he instilled that mindset in his people.
Yeah, and you see the results, right? Singapore went from struggling to thriving.
Totally. And I think that's a perfect example
of
how this growth-oriented mindset can have a ripple effect.
For sure. It's contagious in a good way.
It's not just about you. It can impact entire society.
Exactly. Yeah. So inspiring.
So how do we, actually cultivate this mindset?
Right.
What can we do in our everyday lives?
Agbulla, he gives some really practical tips. He says, embrace challenges.
Don't shy away from them.
Right. And learn from your mistakes instead of being afraid of them.
Yeah. I need to work on that one. I'm such a perfectionist sometimes.
We all are. And he also talks about, being persistent in our pursuit of knowledge, like never stop learning, never stop growing.
Yeah, never stop being curious.
Right. And visualize success. See yourself achieving your goals.
Ooh, visualization is powerful, I've heard.
It is. And of course, don't give up when things get tough. See those setbacks as opportunities to learn and adapt.
So it's all about like that resilience.
Yeah, bouncing back, coming back stronger.
And I feel like these tips, they apply, like no matter what your goals are.
Absolutely. Big or small, personal or professional, it all starts with that growth-oriented mindset.
I love that.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting? I feel like all of these mindsets that we're going to be talking about, they're all kind of like interconnected,
Yeah, totally. They build on each other.
And Agbula's next approach, which is solution-oriented thinking, kind of like builds upon this idea of a growth mindset.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Because you have to be open to new ideas and possibilities to find solutions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, okay, tell me more about this solution-oriented approach. Why is it so important for making an impact?
Well, it's all about focusing on finding solutions rather than like getting bogged down by the problem.
Oh, yeah. Don't dwell on the negative.
Right. And Agbula, he uses this really interesting story from the Bible to illustrate this. It's the one about King Solomon and the two mothers who are both claiming the same baby.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one. Solomon's like, okay, let's cut the baby in half.
Right, and it was so clever.
Smart.
Because he could see right through it.
Yeah.
He knew that the real mother would never agree to that.
Yeah, she was willing to give up the baby to save his life.
Exactly. And that really shows the difference between, being attached to a specific outcome and being truly committed to finding the best solution, even if it means letting go of what you personally want.
Wow, that's deep. It's about the bigger picture.
It is. And I think we can all apply that to our own lives. So many times we get fixated on one solution,
Right.
even if it's not the best one, But a solution-oriented mindset, it encourages us to step back.
Take a breath.
Yeah, and consider all the possibilities, even the ones that seem a little unconventional at first.
Okay, I like that. Think outside the box.
Right. And Agbula brings up Thomas Edison as a modern example.
Oh, yeah, the light bulb guy.
Yeah.
He tried thousands of things before he got it right.
Exactly. And that's what solution-oriented thinking is all about. He didn't see those thousands of attempts as failures.
Right.
He saw them as stepping stones.
Yeah, he was getting closer each time.
Exactly. He had that famous quote, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work."
Love that. It's all about the perspective.
It really is. And Agbula, he even brings in Philippians 4.8 here.
Oh, from the Bible.
Yeah. The verse that talks about focusing on things that are true, honorable, just pure, lovely, commendable, excellent, and praiseworthy.
I remember that one. It's about keeping your thoughts positive.
Exactly. And that's so important for solution-oriented thinking, right? Because if you're dwelling on negativity and problems,
Yeah, you're not going to find the solutions.
you're just going to stay stuck.
So it's about shifting your mindset, basically.
Absolutely. From why is this happening to me to what can I learn from this and how can I use it to move forward?
That's a good one. I'm going to write that down.
Okay, yeah, it's a powerful shift.
Okay, so we've got growth-oriented thinking, solution-oriented thinking. What's next?
Practical-oriented thinking.
Okay, so this is all about putting those thoughts into action, right?
Yeah, it's about bridging the gap between theory and practice. Agbula argues that it's not enough to just understand things in your head.
Right.
You have to be able to actually apply them in the real world.
So it's like knowing how to swim versus actually jumping in the pool.
Perfect example. He uses Noah's Ark to illustrate this point.
Oh, interesting. I wouldn't have thought of that one.
Well, think about it. The Ark wasn't just some random structure, right?
No, it had a very specific purpose.
Exactly. It was carefully designed according to specific principles of flotation and buoyancy.
Yeah, Noah had to know what he was doing.
It's a perfect example of someone taking knowledge and applying it in a practical way to achieve a specific outcome. Imagine if Noah had just studied boat building theory, but never actually put it into practice.
Well, that wouldn't have worked out so well.
No, not at all. So this is all about turning knowledge into action.
From blueprints to building the actual ark.
Exactly. And, just like with the other mindsets, Agbula gives us some guidance on how to cultivate this practical approach. He says, be inquisitive, ask questions.
Yeah, like don't be afraid to say, I don't know.
Right. And then he says, break down problems into smaller parts.
Okay, so like, don't get overwhelmed by the big picture.
Right. Chunk it down into manageable pieces. And then Focus on the outcomes, not just the processes.
So be clear about what you want to achieve.
Exactly. And really embrace your agency. Take control of your learning and find opportunities to actually apply what you're learning.
Don't just sit back and wait for things to happen.
Right. Go out there and make things happen.
Love it. I definitely struggle with that whole feeling overwhelmed by the complexity of a problem thing sometimes.
Oh, me too. But breaking it down into smaller parts, like Agbula suggests, it really does help.
It makes it less daunting.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's a key principle of problem solving.
Okay, so we've got growth-oriented, solution-oriented, and practical-oriented. What's the final approach?
Systems-oriented thinking. This is a big one.
Systems thinking. I feel like that's like a buzzword these days, everyone's talking about it. So what's Agbula's take on it?
Well, he defines it as understanding how things work together as a whole.
Okay, so like seeing the bigger picture.
Exactly. How the different parts of a system interact and influence each other. And to illustrate this, he uses the example of Henry Ford's assembly line.
Oh yeah, the classic example of systems thinking.
It is. Before Ford, cars were built individually, which was super slow and inefficient. But Ford, he understood that by breaking down the manufacturing process into a series of steps and having specialized workers for each step.
Like a well-oiled machine.
Exactly. He could drastically increase efficiency and output.
So he was thinking about the system as a whole, not just the individual part.
Exactly. And this concept, it can be applied to every area of life. Think about your body.
Oh, yeah.
All the different organs, they have specific functions, but they all work together to keep us alive.
Yeah, it's amazing how it all works together.
It is. And then think about something like a city with its transportation systems, communication networks, infrastructure. It's all interconnected.
Wow. Yeah, it's all a system.
And what's really interesting is that Agbula connects systems thinking to something seemingly completely different. The Great Commission from the Bible.
The Great Commission. Wow, that's a stretch. How does he make that connection?
Well, the Great Commission instructs Christians to go out and make disciples of all nations, right? And Agbula, he says that we can view this as a system too.
Okay, I'm listening.
There are inputs, processes, outputs, and feedback loops, just like in any other system.
So it's about understanding how all the different parts work together.
Yeah.
To achieve the overall goal of making disciples.
Exactly. It's a really fascinating perspective.
I never thought of it that way.
And then he even suggests viewing our own lives through the lens of systems thinking.
Okay, now that's really intriguing. How do we do that?
Well, he uses the analogy of the human digestive system.
Okay, I'm not sure I see the connection yet.
Think about it. Our bodies, they break down food into nutrients that we can use for energy and growth. And in the same way, we can break down our goals and tasks into smaller, more manageable steps.
Whoa, okay, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah.
So it's about, breaking things down into smaller parts.
Yeah.
And understanding how they all work together.
Exactly. And just like our hearts pump blood throughout our bodies, our daily routines can be seen as the engine driving us toward our goals.
So instead of being overwhelmed by the big picture, we can focus on optimizing the individual parts of the system.
Right. And understanding how those parts interact and influence each other.
That's a really cool way to look at it.
It is, isn't it? It's about seeing the interconnectedness of everything.
I like it. It makes things feel more manageable somehow.
Exactly. It's less overwhelming. And, this is something we can all explore further. What do you think?
I agree. This has definitely given me some new food for thought. I can't wait to hear how Agbula connects all of this back to the idea of momentum, though. That's where it all comes together, right?
Absolutely. And that's what we'll be diving into in our next deep dive.
I can't wait. Okay, so we've been talking about these four, approaches to thinking that Agbula lays out. Growth-oriented, solution-oriented, practical-oriented, and systems-oriented thinking.
Yeah.
And they all sound great.
Yeah.
But, how do they actually translate into, creating real change in our lives?
Right. Making that impact.
Yeah, how do we actually use them?
Right. So Agbula, he goes on in the chapter to really talk about how to put these into practice. And he starts by, really stressing how important it is to consistently feed our minds.
Makes sense. If we're not learning and growing, how can we expect to create any kind of impact, right?
Exactly. He says that our minds are like muscles. The more we use them, the stronger they become.
Oh, we have to exercise them.
Exactly. And just like we need to nourish our bodies with good food, we need to nourish our minds with, stimulating content.
So it's not just about passively consuming information.
Yeah, it's about actively engaging with it.
Oh,
really wrestling with ideas, analyzing them, connecting them to our own experiences.
So like not just reading a book and forgetting about it.
Right.
But like really thinking about it and how it applies to your life.
Exactly. And another big thing Agbula emphasizes is having a clear sense of purpose.
Oh, yeah, like knowing what you want to achieve.
Exactly. He says that when we have that clear vision, it's so much easier to stay motivated, even when things get tough.
Oh, totally. Like when you know where you're going, it's easier to stay on track.
Yeah.
Even when there are obstacles in your way.
It's like having that compass.
A North Star.
Exactly. And that sense of purpose, it fuels our momentum.
Keeps you moving forward.
It does.
It's like if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there.
Right. Without a clear vision, our efforts can be so scattered.
So, okay, having a purpose, that's important.
Yes.
What else? What are some other practical things that we can do to create this momentum?
Another important thing Agbula talks about is surrounding yourself with the right people.
Oh, yeah. Your tribes.
Yes. He says the people we spend time with, they have such a huge impact on us.
It's true.
Yeah.
Like if you're hanging out with people who are negative and constantly complaining.
Yeah.
It's going to bring you down.
Absolutely. It drains your energy. But if you're with people who are positive and supportive, they lift you up. They inspire you.
So it's like, choose your friends wisely.
Yeah.
Because they can either help you create momentum.
Yeah.
Or they can, totally kill it.
Exactly. And Agbula doesn't stop there. He also emphasizes taking action. All this thinking is great, but it's useless if we don't actually do anything with it.
So, get out of your head.
Yes.
And into the world.
He says don't be afraid to experiment, try new things, even fail sometimes.
Because failure is just a part of the process.
It is. It's how we learn and grow.
So it's okay to mess up.
Absolutely. As long as we learn from it.
I think that's something I really needed to hear today.
I think we all need to hear that sometimes. But, it's easy to say, take action. What about those times when we get stuck, though? When we're hitting a wall and don't know what to do next?
Oh, yeah, like when you feel like you're just spinning your wheels and not getting anywhere.
Exactly.
What do we do then?
Well, Agbula, he gives us some strategies for dealing with that. He suggests taking a step back.
Okay.
Like reassessing our goals. Are they still aligned with our values? Have our circumstances changed? Maybe we need to adjust our approach.
So hitting the pause button and making sure we're still heading in the right direction.
Exactly. Sometimes, we get so caught up in the day-to-day that we lose sight of the big picture.
Oh, that's so true. I do that all the time.
We all do. Another thing he suggests is seeking out new sources of inspiration.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, it could be reading a book, listening to a podcast, talking to someone who inspires us. Sometimes you just need that little spark,
Yeah, to rekindle the fire.
Exactly. And remember, creating lasting impact, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon.
Oh, yeah, it's about consistency.
It's about making those small steps day after day, week after week.
Not trying to do everything at once.
Right, and not getting discouraged when we don't see immediate results.
So it's about the journey, not just the destination.
Exactly.
I love that. This is all so inspiring. I feel like I have a whole new perspective on things.
That's what it's all about, right? Expanding our minds, seeing things in new ways.
So what was it about this chapter that really spoke to you? What resonated the most?
There were so many great insights, but what really stood out for me was Agbula's emphasis on understanding and working with the systems in our lives.
Oh, yeah, that was fascinating.
I mean, it really applies to everything, from our relationships to our careers to our overall well-being. When we can see the bigger picture and understand how all the different parts are connected.
Yeah, it can be a game changer.
It really can. It helps us make better decisions, create more positive outcomes.
It's like moving from just reacting to things.
Yeah.
To actually shaping them.
Exactly.
That's powerful.
It is. And I think that's what Agbula is ultimately getting at in this chapter. It's about realizing that we have the power to create real and lasting impact.
It's about taking ownership of our lives.
Exactly. And using our minds to make the world a better place.
Okay, now I'm getting chills. That's so good. And it kind of reminds me of something else Agbula talked about, how impactful thinking isn't a solo endeavor.
Oh, yeah, that's so important. It's about collaboration, connection, sharing our ideas with others.
We can achieve so much more together.
Absolutely. We need each other.
Than we ever could alone.
Exactly. And by working together, by supporting each other, we can amplify our impact.
Create a ripple effect.
It's like, we're all threads in a tapestry.
Oh, I love that.
And by weaving those threads together, we can create something truly beautiful.
That's a perfect analogy. It really captures the spirit of this chapter. So before we move on, were there any quotes from the chapter that really stood out to you?
Oh, there were so many good ones. But the one that keeps coming back to me is, the mind is like a parachute. It doesn't work if it is not open.
Ooh, that's a good one. Simple, but so powerful.
Right. It reminds us that we need to be open to new ideas, willing to challenge our assumptions.
Embrace the unknown.
Exactly. And another one that really resonated with me was, an obstacle is often a stepping stone to greater things.
Ooh, I like that one too. It's all about resilience.
It is. Not giving up when things get tough. Seeing challenges as opportunities.
Okay, those are both great. And you know what? Agboola, he actually ends this chapter with a series of questions.
He does.
For his readers to reflect on. Do you want to share a couple of those with us?
Absolutely. One that really struck me was, what are you doing to feed your mind and expand your horizons?
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I need to ask myself that more often.
Right. It's a reminder to never stop learning, never stop growing. And another one that I thought was really powerful was, what systems in your life could be optimized for greater impact?
Oh, yeah. That challenges us to put that systems thinking into practice.
Exactly. To look at the different areas of our lives and see how we can make them work better.
I love that. So much to think about.
It is, isn't it?
And this conversation has been so insightful. I feel like I've gained such a deeper understanding of how our thinking really can either limit us or empower us to create the impact we desire.
That's the beauty of exploring these ideas, right? It opens up new possibilities.
So before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with a final thought, something to really ponder. What would you say are the key takeaways from this deep dive into Mind Matters?
Well, I think one of the most important messages is that our minds are incredibly powerful. They can be our greatest asset or our biggest obstacle.
That's so true. It all depends on how we use them.
Exactly. And by understanding how our minds work, by adopting these empowering mental models, we can unlock our full potential.
And create real change in the world.
It's about recognizing our agency and believing in our ability to make a difference.
I love that. It's so empowering.
It is. And it reminds me of something Agboola says at the end of the chapter. He encourages readers to think big, start small, and never give up.
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm writing that down.
It's a reminder that we can achieve anything we set our minds to.
Yeah, it's about taking those first steps and not being afraid to dream big.
Exactly. And, I think it's really interesting how Agboola brings together these ancient stories like King Solomon and then connects those with modern examples like, Henry Ford.
Yeah.
It really shows how these principles of thinking, they're timeless.
Totally. Like they've been around forever.
Yeah, they're universal.
Yeah.
And they still apply to us today.
I love that.
Yeah.
So, okay, we've covered a lot, but I want to make sure our listeners walk away with something practical they can actually do.
Right.
So what's one thing they can do today to start applying these mindsets?
That's a good question. I think a great first step would be to choose one of these 4 approaches and really try to apply it to a challenge you're facing right now. So let's say you're feeling stuck with a problem.
Yeah.
Try tackling it with a growth mindset. Or if you're feeling, overwhelmed by something, maybe shift to that solution-oriented approach.
So it's like picking the right tool for the job.
Exactly. And remember, it's not about, being perfect or anything. It's just about making that conscious effort to shift your perspective, see things from a new angle.
Yeah, even just that little shift can make a big difference.
It really can.
So, okay, this has been amazing.
It has.
I feel like my mind is officially blown wide open.
Good. That's the goal.
So, to wrap things up, I want to leave our listeners with a little challenge. It's inspired by this chapter.
Ooh, a challenge.
Think about a system in your life. It could be, anything really.
Right.
Your work, your family, a hobby you're passionate about. Now, think about how you can apply systems thinking to that.
Right.
To make it better, to make it more impactful.
Ooh, I like that challenge.
Like, what are the different parts of that system? How do they interact? What small changes can you make to improve the overall functioning of that system?
That's a great one. And remember, start small. Yeah. Experiment, see what works.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be this huge, overwhelming thing.
Baby steps.
So, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Mind Matters.
It was fun.
I hope everyone's minds are as open as a parachute now.
Yeah.
And until next time, keep diving deep.